Welcome to the show, everyone. This is the Voices of Healing podcast that gives you holistic solutions to your health challenges. And today's guest is Christine Ruch, and she's here with me in Costa Rica, beautiful Costa Rica. And I'm here on the East Coast, and I'm your host, Tina Clark. And I'm a shamanic Reiki teacher out of Charleston, South Carolina. So welcome to the show, Christine.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell us more about yourself and your background.
So I'm a holistic transformation guide, but I have a long past of being a guide in various capacities. Most significantly, I'm also a trained chef and a holistic natural chef, and I had a restaurant and a couple of food brands in Boulder, Colorado for 10 years, where I spent a lot of time connecting people to the power of plants and the messages that they bring us for our own healing. And so I did that for 10 years to really connect people with how amazing plants are and the intelligence that it can bring us on our healing path. And so I did that for 10 years, and channeling food on your plate as a way of healing. And now I work directly with women to heal their autoimmune condition of MS.
Well, that is really needed because autoimmune diseases seem to be like this big mystery on how to handle, how to heal, even on the spiritual level or energetic level, which is where I come from, where my area is. But did you have MS, and were you able to overcome it?
Yeah, I have MS. I've had it for 20 years, and it's mostly through my own healing that then I would bring that healing to whomever. And so for a long time, it was primarily through food. And so then that's where those messages in food kept coming through. And I had all my holistic food brands, but and then slowly, as you probably recognize as well with your work, it's like you get to this point where you recognize that there's so much more to healing that transcends food. And that's how I felt about my own healing path with MS. And once I got to all of these other layers, it felt really as if it was my calling to share this deeper layer of healing with people. And I feel like while it's wonderful to be on podcasts to be able to talk about it, it's just such individual work because everybody is so unique in how that disease manifests for them.
Yeah, so tell us more about what happened with you and what kind of modalities did you utilize and feel useful for your own healing journey?
Yeah, so it's been 20 years. And I started right away with food. That was one of my first things. And then that's what, catapulted me into the holistic healing world and getting my degree in holistic nutrition and going on to open restaurants. But while at the same time I did that, I was also going through all of these layers of my own healing, and with every type of modality. And as you probably recognize as well, it's just like there's so many healing chapters that you're in. And so, I could be in the chapter of like all about food. And then I was kind of thrust into another chapter for a very long time that was all based on environmental illness. And I suffered from mold since we didn't know we had mold in our house. And like a lot of people, and had a whole bunch of mold illnesses. There was a huge microbiome chapter, and I went and got a fecal transplant in the UK in 2018. And so it's just like I have all these major healing chapters of my path. And and now it's really about the psycho-spiritual trauma and really the nervous system and all of the ways in which we hold all of these traumas and things in our past within our body, within our nervous system that isn't seen, isn't felt, isn't expressed. also that we don't really have a connection to. We don't even actually recognize that that is within us, while we're busy like making our kale smoothies and hitting the gym and doing all the right things. There's a layer at which we're not authentically healing at the deepest way that we can. It's because, in my opinion, we're not addressing these other deeper layers of the reasons that illness came to us in the first place.
Yeah, and that's why I'm such a big believer in holistic healing, because we have to look at every part of that person. And I don't know why I'm thinking of her, but I have I have a client who's actually a holistic expert too. I'm trying to get her to be on the show, and she's local here. And she helped heal her son of autism.
Oh, wow.
They
That's impressive.
they got the diagnosis, and they said he's going to be nonverbal and he won't be able to do anything. And she was like, no, I don't accept that. And now he's in high school and he drives a car. I know. So, but the one part that I helped her with was the emotional part, because she had lost her husband in an accident, and she was really struggling with that. And she said, I've tried everything, I just don't know what to do, and I just feel stuck. And I said, well, let's work on your energy system. Let's clear your energy system. And couple of sessions, and she felt like a new person. So for her was that emotional, quotient. It could be, and she's holistic, she's healthy, she exercises like crazy. I mean, she's always exercising. So sometimes you need that one part. But yeah, you're right. It is a journey, and it's multiple layers. And sometimes you have to revisit things too. You think, oh, I thought I moved on from this issue. And then it pops up again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love what you said about the emotion, because I think that it is a vital component of our healing path. I definitely I've learned a lot about, in the nervous system restoration process, you really learn how to hold emotions and have the capacity to hold them, how to deal with them, how to move through them, a lot of things. And I think because of, well, I don't know, probably generationally, that wasn't really part of any way that the average person would talk or speak, or the way that children were raised to have an awareness around that type of thing. And so I think that there was a lot of becoming more and more connected to my emotions, and how my disordered way of connecting with my emotions was leading to disordered health outcomes. And in a lot of ways, it doesn't seem like it correlates. I would go to yoga, and I would meditate, and I would eat really healthy, and I would eat, and I would exercise, and all of that kind of stuff. But I never, I thought that I love leadership, and I love being a good boss, and I love being good to people, and I'm kind and I'm generous. But also I didn't have like a full connection to the range of emotions, and not just the range of emotions, but like how to deal with the emotions as they were coming up, and how to hold them and have the space for them without attaching a story to it. And then from that story, then you create an identity. And then from the identity, you create choices. And then from those choices, right? And it's just kind of like this little rabbit hole. And then also the other thing that I love what you said as well is with regards to how something keeps popping back up. And I wonder what you think about whether or not we actually move through and move past and heal these things, because I've been seeing this in my own path as well, where I will revisit an old thing, right? And I used to say, like, God, I thought that I managed that. I thought I cleared that. I thought I met that. I thought I was done with that, or whatever language I would want to hold. But I started to recognize that it's more of a spiral than it is a linear path. And so I would revisit the same things again, but I am revisiting them from a different place, because I'm a different person than I was the last time I was in that place, and the time before when I was in that place, and the time before when I was in that place. And so I feel like if I can continue to meet that wound again, but I'm always meeting it in a new place of another layer of understanding, or another layer of healing, or another layer of accepting, or whatever that is, then I feel like that's growth enough for me to keep meeting these old wounds again and be like, oh, there you are. Oh, hi, you're back. And but be able to have a different connection with that as it arises, than I would have in the past.
I remember I went to Egypt last year. When you travel, it's very hard, like it's enjoyable, but it pushes you in all these different ways, which I understand. And I'm going to places that are powerful,
Yeah.
that has
Yeah,
powerful energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Have you been to Egypt?
No, I haven't, but
Okay.
just saying the word evokes a lot of powerful energies.
Yeah, it was intense. And when my roommate triggered me, and it wasn't something that I had been actively working on, but it felt very old, like it was familiar to me, like I knew what it
Yeah.
was. But I was so upset about it. And I couldn't talk to her about it. And I was so angry at her. And we just went to one of these ancient sites, and I just cried the whole time, which is very unlike me.
Wow.
And then I just left the group, and I waited for them. And then another woman in the group came up to me and she said, Tina, I just want to let you know that there are things coming up for me on this trip that I thought that I had dealt with and healed. And when she said that, like my intensity and my emotion just dropped down
Yeah.
when she said that.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny because my roommate was hugging me and telling me she loved me. And I was like, I know, I was like, I love you too. And then our tour guide, who we just met a few days before, was standing there, and he didn't say a thing. He just stood next to me, and he reached in his pocket and gave me a tissue.
Thank God for tissues at the right moment.
And then I believe in synchronicity and signs. And there's this little tuk-tuk driver, it's like a kind of a motorcycle with the tuk-tuk
We
type
have them
thing.
here in Costa
Yeah,
Rica too. Yeah.
it's like a type of taxi. And this guy pulls up right in front of us, and it says Jesus on the front of his tuk-tuk. And somebody made a comment and said, look, Jesus is telling us to get our shit together right now.
That's good.
But yeah, I feel like I released something huge there. Like I still can't quite explain it, but I felt like a different person afterwards. So when you let something go and you feel like you peeled off a layer and you feel like a new person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do you feel like maybe in Egypt you were also taking in like the energy of Egypt, and then the energies of those ancient sites that you were in, like these ancestral energies, and then maybe even the energy of your friend, and which unconsciously, without her having shared with you that yet at that time that she was going through her own powerful things, but you were reacting to her energies, and while you're sitting there like, why am I so bothered by this? And I think it's funny, people don't recognize that that's real, that we do that all the time, that we do react to energy that's not ours, external energy,
Yeah.
whether
And
it's
sometimes
societal energy or friendships or whatever.
people are just messengers sometimes. Sometimes they just say things, they didn't mean to hurt you, but they meant it as a joke, but then
Yeah.
it's like pushing that sore button, very,
Yeah.
very sore, old and sore
Yeah.
little
Sore.
poking the bear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So have you done some self-reflection on MS? Have you thought about what caused it for you, or why did this come about for you, and what have you learned going through it?
Yeah, thank you. I used to think that it was all an outside in kind of healing path, right? So like outside in, like see all these doctors, take all these tests, do all these data points, have all these tinctures and these supplements and this diet and this exercise routine and all these externally driven, external authority driven modalities. And there's nothing wrong with that. And they're incredibly important. And they signal to your nervous system a lot of things when they're implemented in the right capacity or in the right way, but, or coming from the right place. But I think in the last, like at least 5 years, it's really been a wholly different way of recognizing that actually we do have the capacity to befriend our nervous system. And we do have the capacity to modulate our own nervous system, and with better outcomes that don't require doctors and neurologists and pills and tinctures and tests and diets and all that other stuff. Although I keep going back to the diet because the food is a great antenna and a vibration that you send this vibration of safety to your body when you are eating properly. But having said that, I think for my personal path was really, I had done a lot of therapy in my life and seen doctors and EMDR and all of that stuff. And I'm very big on all of that. But, it was more of this head thing. Like, this is a mental kind of thing. And it wasn't this deeper, like a deeper way of connecting with my nervous system and the trauma. Like, I had a very traumatic childhood, and a lot of that traumas were forgotten, never seen, never met. I'd never even recognized. It wasn't until I actually did a plant medicine experience that unleashed my body in like the most visceral way that really woke me up to the fact that we carry so much in our body that we're absolutely unconnected to. And that kind of led me down a path of like deepening like my understanding of like, what is that? Like, what did that happen? And what does that mean? And does other people and does everybody and like why, and so, yeah, it's been about 5 years for me to just really focusing primarily on that and seeing how that layer of healing is like rooted in deep authenticity and truth, that no amount of all these externally driven healing modalities can really balance or touch or negate. Does that make sense? So I think it was really, for me, once I started clearing all these childhood things that I wasn't fully connected to, yeah, I knew they happened, but I didn't have a connection between like a mental memory of like, oh, this happened in my childhood to, oh, and this is how it's showing up in your life, in your nervous system as a dysregulation that's leading to this disease. And the only other thing that I'll say with regards to that is that a lot of times to old wounds, and then you create a personality trait as a coping mechanism. And then you have this disconnection between the stress in your life and these old childhood wounds and this personality trait. Like, so for me, I was very type A. I was very achievement oriented and wanted to get accolades from people outside me to always tell me I was doing the right thing. And like, that's the most delicious food I've ever eaten and that kind of stuff. And not really fully recognizing that I kept my own nervous system in balance. Like, I could do all of the releasing of old childhood wounds I wanted, but that doesn't necessarily change if you're continuing to make lifestyle choices and that continue to keep your nervous system in balance. I don't know if that resonates with you or not, but that's.
Yeah. So you realized that your lifestyle was dysregulating your nervous system. Yeah. Or even just your thoughts or what you were expecting from others was dysregulating you.
I mean, the whole thing, like, for example, I had all these food brands. I had 3 locations. It's like, I had a restaurant, for crying out loud, and I would say like to people like, my favorite thing about restaurants was that I craved creating order out of inherent chaos. Like that was what I would say all the time. Like that's why I was so good at what I did. But yeah, that's true. But at what cost?
Mm-hmm.
Like I created this whole life with this business to keep my nervous system dysregulated, you know what I mean? Without having any connection, feeling like proud of my dysregulated nervous system. Well, I kept cranking out different food and different events and different brands and different, and I don't know. It was just chaos. It was crazy.
And
Nobody
so
should do that.
maybe your body was saying, stop doing this. Doesn't feel good.
100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
It
a
sure
really
was.
good example of that. I used to work for the federal government, and I just moved around kind of different agencies, and my situation kept getting worse and worse. I'd say, oh, I'm working in a new place, different people, and the final one was just the worst, and then my appendix burst.
Oh my gosh.
So talk about my power was leaking out of my body, literally. And I think it's
literally
because I was a target because I was new, and my job was to kind of look at how people were doing their jobs, and they looked at me as a threat, but I underestimated how much that affected me. And then I got my appendix burst, and I mean, I'm not dumb. I was like, universe is telling me, get out. Don't do this anymore. Like, we kept trying to tell you, don't stay on this track. And so I said, okay, I just walked away. I said, I can't do this anymore. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm not doing this.
Well, I love what you shared because it's so powerful, actually. It seems like a silly little, not silly, but it seems like a simple anecdote. But what I'm hearing you say is like, number one, that it really is this energetic vibration, that the frequency that the universe gives you what you need to heal all the time. And so when you said like I was a target, and it's like I was a target too. I felt like I would draw certain dysfunctional people into my path. And I thought it was because I needed to heal them. But really it was my invitation to heal myself of the need to attract that into my life. And but then I also love what you said about, unfortunately, about the appendicitis and about the appendix bursting. But that was exactly what happened to me too. I mean, I just had to walk away from everything in the most spectacularly terrible fashion. I just stopped. Everything stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you don't do that with a food business that's been running for a decade. I mean, you just don't. 3 leases and storage units and vans and 75 employees. And in 4 days, I just was done. And because I had this huge energetic sign from the universe that was just a flat out stop now.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there was just no way that I could deny it. I couldn't say no. And I couldn't explain it to anybody. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was going to do. People thought I was insane. They were just like, how can you walk away from all this? Like, do you see that, like, you've created all this amazing things, but like inside I was dying,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't put it all together until I finally, I had to walk away. I just had to leave no matter what. I just had to save myself.
I did too. And I was always career oriented, and I was not planning to be a stay-at-home mom. That wasn't in my plan, but it kind of worked out that way. And, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did, because when you have children, you want to be there for them. You want to be there for all those moments. And if I look at my own childhood, both my parents were so busy working, I barely saw them. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because my sister chose the same thing. She stayed at home for a while too. And I think it's because we barely saw our parents.
Yeah.
And so we wanted something different for our own children.
Yeah.
But what was the sign that you got? Can you share what the sign was?
Wow. Well, first I did my first, I don't know if this is relevant to say on this show or not, but you asked, so I'll be honest. I did my first psychedelic journey about in September of 2022. And it was because I had just opened my third business, and there was and now I recognize how the whole universe was conspiring to make sure it didn't happen. But at that time, I still was baiting my head against the wall. All of these, like, what? First of all, opening another business, like just post-COVID, was just a recipe for disaster in and of itself. No matter how much money the government's like just throwing at you, you know. But needless to say, I had always felt like I would be called to that type of experience, but I just knew that I would know when the time was right, that I would pursue that. And so in September, I did my first psychedelic journey. I did it with a plant, a master plant called Wachuma, which is San Pedro. It's a cactus. And I'm from the Southwest. And so I'm from Arizona originally. And so I was like, okay, well, this is kind of fitting that I would, and it's supposed to be this really soft, heart opening, like grandfather experience. And it was so crazy because it was a beautiful experience. There was nothing in it saying stop, except that I got one word for 8 hours, and it was one word, and it was rest. And it showed me that I had autoimmune disease because I didn't ever rest. And it showed that I had food allergies because I had this super strict diet, and I had a very tight diet for a long time. And that I had all these food sensitivities because I didn't know how to rest. And then I also have really bad insomnia. Like, that was one thing that always eluded every sort of modality that I could ever try to, whether it was pharmaceuticals or, like, it didn't matter. I had a sleep hygiene routine that anybody would be like, wow. And it didn't matter. And the medicine said that I couldn't sleep because I didn't know how to rest. And that when I learned how to rest, then I would finally begin to sleep. And it's been a journey. Like, that was in 2022. So it's been a while, but 3 months after that, then I was standing in my kitchen, and then everything started getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And by December, I remember standing in my kitchen, and there was just so much terribleness that I didn't even know if I would be able to make it through the holidays. And I swear, it was like this energetic bolt of lightning that just, like, I can feel it in my body right now. It was just right in front of me in my kitchen, just so powerfully vibrating. And it was just like the universe was just saying, no, stop now, stop now. And I will just never forget it. I just see it in my mind's eye, like, just like it was just yesterday. I remember trembling. I just was trembling with, like, the force of what was happening to me, and looking around like, is anybody else seeing this? Am I going crazy? And I was just, and I just knew, like, I just couldn't, that was it. I had to obey that. I just knew that there was no other way. I just had to obey that. And we closed 4 days later. I just used the rest of the food we had in our walk-in, and I announced to my staff the next day, and then we announced to the public the day after that, and then we rolled through the rest of the week, and then we closed on a Friday night, and that was our last service, and it was over. It started on a Monday, and I closed on Friday.
Wow. Everybody
it was intense.
Everybody had whiplash because they were like, what?
Everybody had whiplash. Yeah, 100%. It was truly shocking to the community, for sure. Yeah, it was shocking to me as well. It was shocking to everybody.
Yeah, but when you look back on it, don't you see that there were so many signs, and there were so many messages to slow down and rest and stop, and you didn't notice or didn't listen, or
Well, and I love, like you kind of said it as well. Like, I will rest when, like, I just need to, like, I'll be able to rest when I get this business open, and I'll take a vacation when this and when that, and just after the holidays, and I'll rest here. And I kept like trying to barter with the universe about that. And until the universe just flat out just said no. And that was the scariest, most difficult time in my entire life. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. There was a lot of consequences to that. But it was an opportunity for me. I mean, I could place blame with all of like Boulder City Council and my landlord and the cost of food and how much you have to pay employees now post COVID. And I could, and there, all of that is true. But there was also in me. You know, there was also all of me. There was all the ways in which I kept my nervous system dysregulated, thinking kale smoothies were the answer. And there were all of these other ways in which I was not in alignment with my truth, ultimately. And it's been a whole process now of owning all of that, owning and shifting my life to be more in service of my own authenticity and in service of my own truth, and to work from that place. And that has shifted my health tremendously. Actually, it wasn't even my intention at that time. It was just trying to get out of the mess of everything that I created for myself. Until now, though, in hindsight, yeah, super grateful for the whole thing. I wouldn't want to do it again, but I'm very grateful.
You needed to, though. You know, it's not an option anymore. There's certain tracks that we are on, and let's just call it our higher selves, so we don't blame our guides or anything for this. You know,
yeah,
they're just trying to help us out. So the higher self wants to do these things. You know, there's a lot of options on how to do it, and then if you veer off track, you know, you start having these issues and these challenges and everything. And so we have free will, but if we get really off track, we'll get kicked in the ass. And that's what that appendicitis was. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not supposed to be doing this anymore, and just walk away from years of experience, from master's degree, everything.
Yeah. And so I don't know what your relationship is now with like all of the education and all the ways in which you invested in your professional self leading up to that moment, and then like what your relationship was with that person or that afterwards. Because like for me, it's maybe similar, because like a lot of people expected that like, well, I'll open another restaurant. And like people wanted to keep me in the food scene. And it was very much an expectation in my marriage as well. And it was an expectation by everybody that they all had me boxed into this one thing. And it was what I put my entire professional path into, to such a degree that I didn't fully recognize that I have so many more gifts and so many more talents to bring to my path of service that transcend like being a good cook. And now cooking is essential to health, but like I'm so much more than that. And I wonder how you feel about your path now as opposed to where you were, like as you were getting your master's degree and investing in like this professional path.
I feel like no matter what I had chosen, I would have had a problem with it. Because I'm not an in the box person. I'm an outside the box person, and I don't like to be limited. I don't like to follow authority. I don't like to follow rules that don't make sense to me. I'm a number 1 life path, if you know anything about numerology. So the best thing for us to do is to have our own business, but then that's pain too. You know,
it's so funny. I am a 1 also numerology, and I've never walked the path of normalcy. Although I struggled against it a lot, right? Because I wanted to fit in. And even though I knew that I'm like an early adopter and a rule breaker, and I kind of liked that like renegade part of my personality, but I didn't fully embrace the fact that I truly am and just what you said too, it's like I tried to put that outsider thinking into having a restaurant and trying to break a traditional mold of how restaurants should be run by having this very avant-garde, totally unique type of restaurant. And but I it just wasn't it wasn't sustainable for me in terms of who my authentic being is and the way I do thrive outside of societal norms and societal structures. And that's where I really thrive, which is why I'm here in Costa Rica now. Is to that path is way more me living more from my authenticity
Well,
than it
like
was
I
before.
tried to fit in. I'm just different, folks. I'm just
I'm just,
different.
I'm just
Like
different, folks.
I could smell a lie a mile away. I just, you know, and people feel that and they were uncomfortable with it. They didn't like me
Yes.
for it, and I couldn't help it because that's just the way I am.
Yeah. Wow. Too bad I don't live closer to you. We'd get along just fine. The same way. I can just say things and I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but I just know it. I just see it and I just don't. I don't follow the same rules that everybody else follows. And it's been a long time trying to follow those rules, but that's not how I'm designed.
I me neither, and I just don't care anymore, you know, like
Neither do I.
I mean, I'm a
I'm
shamanic
much happier
Reiki
for
teacher.
it.
Like, do you think I care if you don't get it or don't
Yeah.
believe in it? You know, I just have to,
Yeah.
you have to do you, and I have to do me, or else it gets too uncomfortable. And then we have these health issues, and then we have all these problems. And so, you know, if there was an easy way out, I mean, I don't know if we would take it or not, but
It's probably not.
I've also been told that I like a challenge. So here we are.
Yeah, well, but I mean, I love a challenge too, which is that's so interesting that you say that because it's like, isn't it a challenge just the path that you've chosen now, right? You're this Reiki shamanic healer, and I'm a holistic transformation guide, and I don't have a framework that is like a 90-day cure, and I don't have like a linear path to your health success. It's all about teaching you how to heal yourself. And it's all about supporting you and holding space for you as you walk your path to your own truth to inspire a health awakening such that then all of a sudden things click and then health just comes. But like nobody's doing that. Like people are like, wait, what are you doing with? And I'm like, I just know that this is the answer. Like this is what is missing in this conversation around multiple sclerosis. And you probably feel the same way. Like what you're doing is really the answer to helping people on a deeper level. It doesn't matter whether or not mainstream people get it or not. You know authentically like that this is important work and you can't deviate from it.
And it works.
And it works. Yes.
Sometimes it's quick. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but if we keep working on it, we'll get her done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it'll happen.
How much of that do you feel like is people's personal belief in their own abilities to transcend illnesses or difficulties that they're having in their lives?
I think it helps to be open-minded, but some of my best outcomes have come from people who have tried everything and they're desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you've come to the right place because now you're ready for change, big change. And that's when I see miracles happen.
Yeah. I wonder though too, if people fully believe at that time when they come to you, they just know that they're at this rock bottom or at this place where they're desperate, and they don't necessarily know that it's about belief at that point in time, as much as they're like more with that primary emotion of desperation and frustration and ready for anything.
Yeah, and all
And
they know is that everything else didn't work. And so when I hear that, I say, "Oh, great.
great, let's get started.
Yes, that doesn't scare me at all. You're actually in the right place because you probably haven't tried what I have to offer you."
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I love that. I feel the exact same way, you know. It's like I'm not interested in, like, let's say people are like, you should join a Facebook group about like healing MS naturally. But it's like everything on there just reinforces this 3D model of healing. And nothing I say in that container is going to mean anything to anybody. But for the right person in the right place in their healing path, it like clicks and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that actually resonates with me, you know?"
Yeah, it's a very individualized. We're all so unique. And,
Mhm.
that's why it's, we can't fit everybody. It's not cookie cutter. There's no pill
Thank
out
God.
there that's gonna heal everything. In fact, it's gonna make it worse. So get rid
Yep.
of those.
Yep. Get rid of
Yeah,
those.
yeah. But
Yeah.
but then again, people like you have done amazing things. They've overcome amazing health challenges, and that's why I created the podcast because I want people to know there are options out there for them,
Yeah.
and that if they just did their own research, started trying different things, and connected with the right practitioners, they would start seeing results. And that's my dream. That's my hope that that's what this podcast accomplishes.
What I love about what you do is that you help people see that it's within their capacity to take their power back. And in so many different ways, I feel like in the healing path, doesn't matter what you are trying to heal from. A lot of times people just give away their power to like an external authority, and they don't actually sit with themselves to say, like, does this resonate? Is this true? Is this what I really need? And what do I really want? And a lot of times, if you were to pose those questions, it would be a lot of I don't know. And I think that there's a process of like reclamation that has to happen where people start to pull back their authority or pull back their power and take power into their own hands.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, I think for people who have get to the back, like the end of their line with their health, they've given away so much of themselves in the health path, right? The healing path, to different doctors and modalities and tests and tinctures and pills and diets and coaches and programs and all of this kind of stuff. And it's not that those things aren't important and don't have a place, but if you don't know your true self and you're not connected to what your body really wants to heal, then you're just throwing good money after bad in that regard.
Yep.
You're giving away your power and feeling diminished in the process.
Right. I mean, take back your power, people. Like
Take back your
you,
power.
you have the right to say no. You have the right to say, no, I don't want that. And you know how many diagnoses I've received? And who cares?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, that's just your
yeah,
opinion. And that doesn't mean I'm going to suffer for the rest of my life from this. And I don't, you know, there are things I've been diagnosed with. It's not a problem anymore.
yeah.
It's
Me
like,
too.
it's
Yeah,
done. It's in the
I've
past. Yeah.
100%. I have so many more diagnoses than MS that I've transcended. But I also believe what you said so much. I think like let's say somebody will want to share with me like, where exactly they're on their myelin sheath is deteriorating, because the MRI shows like this lesion in this brain links to the tingling in their fingers or something like that. And they want to show me all of these data points, and they're frustrated that I'm not interested, because I'm like, but it's not about that. We can't go in and be like, oh yes, that demyelination in your brain can be, we're going to draw a line through your fingers and be like, yep, that's where we're going to fix, is that line right there. And it's like, no, it doesn't work like that. It's like so much bigger than that. You can't reduce healing to this little tiny data point, like going from this dot to that dot. It's like, no, it's easier. And it's also bigger than that, but easier in a lot of ways if you look at it how you work or how I work. It's like more gentle and more authentic. And like a lot of healing is very forced, and it creates another fear vibration of and it's very like productivity, goal oriented. And I think, like, I don't know how you feel about your healing, but for mine, it's very gentle, it's very soft. And people underestimate how powerful these other healing modalities are that don't just like knock your socks off, like, let's say, taking a round of like penicillin or something like that.
Yeah, and it takes
So
time, it's
yeah,
like if you have a chronic problem, I'm gonna see you several times in the next in a couple of months, because all that energy work and all of that emotional, mental work and spiritual work, you need time to integrate and notice what happens after the session, you know? So nothing's rushed.
no,
Yeah.
nothing's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love and I believe is like our nervous system heals at the pace of nature. And like when you look at like how like you can't rush the coming of spring, and you can't delay, the coming of fall, and you can't rush the blooming of the flowers or the harvest of the fields. And in the same way, our nervous system and our body, where you can't rush the gestation process, like putting aside like medical procedures, but authentic gestation is its own divine, beautiful timing. And
Mhm.
he's the exact same way. And we think that we can like rush, for sure. Can you like rush results? Can you produce results? For sure. Like you could lose 30 pounds in 30 days, but is that lasting? Is that true? Is that authentic healing? Is that authentic weight loss? It's like,
Right.
no, it's not. And if we can create an opportunity for people to really understand and embrace the fact that our body will heal in its own beautiful pace, that's separate from what the medical mainstream like timeline is, then I think even that alone would be an amazing thing for people to fully like not just get, but like embrace.
Yeah, I think this was a good primer on holistic healing and what it really means to heal holistically.
Yeah,
And so when you're with your clients, you said you help them with their autoimmune diseases. Do you feel like the root of that would be nervous dysregulation?
for sure. Especially when it comes to multiple sclerosis. There is definitely a vibration and energetic frequency for women with MS. And a lot of that is all rooted in learned behaviors from childhood that we are proud of in adulthood, these learned traits like being like ambitious or like, all of those things, pushing, forcing, kind of uh, energetic frequency of like always like achieving. Um, yeah, if we can soften that response and soften the nervous system, and like this maybe wraps all the way back around to our beginning of our conversation, emotional capacity. Like having the emotional capacity to just hold what is and meet it, and don't need to fix it, don't need to, like, there's nothing to fix, there's nothing to change, there's nothing to do. You just need to meet it and you need to hold it. And some of these things sound super blasphemous to a lot of people, but once you start embracing how to talk to the nervous system and how to work with the nervous system, kind of like, remember when our babies were baby and we didn't just, we're in wonder and awe looking at their little bodies and we're like, I don't know what that noise means. I don't know what you need.
Mm-hmm.
But we met that baby, that infant, with love and curiosity. And like, I don't know what it means, but I know I love you and I know I want to make you comfortable and I want to make you happy and I want you to stay healthy. So I'm going to try my hardest to figure out what your little cries mean. And if we could look at our nervous system the exact same way and hold it like in reverence, like in wonder and awe, like we are looking at our newborn infant, like, wow, then suddenly the nervous system will recognize that and start to respond to that new relationship that you're creating as you build trust within your system.
I love that. I hope that we all have nervous systems like that someday.
I know, right? I think that's where we're headed, to be honest with you. I think we're starting to recognize that the life that we lead in so many ways is so chaotic, and it's not actually our human design. It's not how we're supposed to thrive in this world. And it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean you can't be ambitious and it can't be hardworking and you can't have all the things that you want, but the pace at which we bombard our nervous systems is truly like, it's just not natural. It's just not how we're supposed to thrive in this world.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to change.
It
I
will.
know that for sure.
Yeah, me
But
too.
Christine, can you share how people can contact you and any projects or books or anything you might be working on right now?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is through my website, Christine@ChristineRuch.com. You can email me there, or you can message me, or you can even book like an insight call with me on my website. And then I write for Substack. I write, about the healing path and all of the ways in which we heal that transcends, our mainstream dictates around the healing process. So yeah. So
Awesome.
you can read my work on Substack or find me on my website.
Yeah, and she specializes in autoimmune, holistic nutrition, healing from MS. So if you or your loved ones are dealing with that right now, contact Christine. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Tina. I really appreciate the opportunity.